There exists a truth so uncomfortable that most would rather pretend it does not exist, a reality so raw that it offends the modern conscience trained to believe in fairness and equality. Yet this truth persists, silent and absolute, operating beneath every interaction, every glance, every moment of judgment that passes between human beings. What if the respect others show you was never truly earned through kindness or good intentions, but rather decided in those first invisible seconds before a single word leaves your mouth? What if the entire architecture of human regard rests not on virtue, but on something far more primal, something that the great Florentine thinker understood with chilling clarity centuries ago? Niccolò Machiavelli, observing the courts of power and the theatre of human ambition, recognized what polite society refuses to acknowledge. He saw that respect is not given freely, nor is it a reward for moral excellence. It is extracted, commanded, seized through laws that operate in shadow, beyond the realm of conscious awareness. These are not the laws written in books or debated in assemblies, but the dark architecture of perception itself, the invisible mechanics that determine who ascends and who kneels, who speaks and who listens, who leads and who follows. They function with ruthless efficiency, separating those who understand power from those who merely wish for it. Consider for a moment the people in your life who command immediate respect, not through titles or wealth, but through presence alone. They enter a room, and the atmosphere shifts. Their silence carries more weight than others' speeches. Their requests become priorities, while identical words from another mouth dissolve into background noise. What do they possess that others lack? The answer lies not in what they say or do, but in what they unconsciously broadcast, signals so subtle yet so powerful that they bypass rational thought and speak directly to the ancient parts of the human brain that calculate threat, value, and hierarchy in milliseconds. The uncomfortable revelation that Machiavelli would have recognized immediately is this: humans are not the rational, fair-minded creatures they imagine themselves to be. Beneath the veneer of civilization pulses an older intelligence, one that reads body language like prophecy, interprets tone like scripture, and judges worthiness through mechanisms refined over millennia of survival. This intelligence does not care about your education, your kindness, or your good intentions. It measures something else entirely, something that operates below the threshold of polite conversation, in the realm where power is felt rather than discussed. Those who master these dark laws do not announce their mastery. They simply move through the world differently, collecting respect like gravity collects matter, effortlessly and inevitably. What follows is not philosophy for the faint of heart, nor comfort for those who prefer beautiful lies to brutal truths. This is an excavation of the hidden mechanics of human respect, drawn from the observations of a man who watched princes rise and fall, who understood that the world rewards not the virtuous, but the astute, not the hopeful, but the strategic. Machiavelli's gift was his willingness to describe reality without the cosmetics of morality, to reveal the machinery beneath the performance. If you dare to see what others choose to ignore, if you possess the courage to acknowledge how respect truly operates rather than how you wish it operated, then prepare yourself. The dark laws are about to be illuminated, and once seen, they cannot be unseen. The question is not whether these laws exist, but whether you will continue to be their unknowing subject or finally become their conscious master. The first dark law operates in the space before speech, in the territory of bearing and physical presence that Machiavelli observed in those who held power without needing to declare it. He understood that the human animal registers threat and value through channels far older than language, reading posture, movement, and spatial occupation with an accuracy that borders on the supernatural. When you enter a space, your body tells a story before your mouth opens, broadcasting either dominance or submission, confidence or apology, worthiness or expendability. This transmission happens in fractions of a second, yet it sets the entire framework for how others will treat you, establishing invisible boundaries and hierarchies that become nearly impossible to renegotiate once set. Consider how a prince enters his own court versus how a supplicant approaches the throne. The difference lies not merely in status, but in physical certainty, in the way space itself seems to yield rather than resist. Those who command respect do not rush, do not contract themselves to occupy less room, do not perform the countless small gestures of deference that announce subordination. They move with deliberation, as if the world operates on their timeline, rather than demanding they accommodate its rhythms. Their gestures are economical, stripped of the nervous energy that betrays doubt. Their stillness contains more power than others' motion, for stillness suggests internal authority, the lack of need to prove or explain or justify. Machiavelli would have noted how this physical sovereignty operates below conscious awareness, triggering ancient calculations in the observer's mind. The human brain evolved in environments where physical confidence correlated with genuine capability and where hesitation often meant death, still makes these assessments with lightning speed. It asks, does this person occupy space with authority or apologetically? Do they move as predator or prey? Do they claim their presence or request permission for it? These questions receive answers in the first 3 seconds of encounter, answers that color every subsequent interaction, creating either a foundation of respect or a presumption of dismissibility that becomes exhausting to overcome. The tragedy is that most people have been trained into physical submission without recognizing it. They have learned to make themselves smaller, to hurry when occupying shared space, to apologize with their bodies for the inconvenience of their existence. This training often comes disguised as politeness or consideration, but its effect is to broadcast low status to every ancient brain that observes it. The person who constantly shifts their weight, who fidgets under attention, who angles their body away as if preparing to flee, sends unmistakable signals of subordination. These signals do not register consciously in most observers, but they register nonetheless, creating an automatic categorization that places the person in question somewhere in the hierarchy, usually lower than they deserve based on actual capability or intelligence. The correction of this law requires not aggression, but calm certainty, not performance, but genuine internal authority. Machiavelli understood that true power need not announce itself because it is evident in every gesture, every glance, every moment of physical being. To command respect through presence means first respecting your own right to occupy space, to move without apology, to exist without contracting yourself to accommodate others' comfort. It means developing what martial artists call centeredness, an awareness of your own body as instrument rather than burden, as rightful occupant of space rather than temporary intruder upon it. This physical sovereignty must be cultivated deliberately, for it runs counter to most social conditioning. Begin by observing those who possess it naturally, noting how they stand, how they move, how they relate to the space around them. Notice that they do not rush, do not collapse their posture, do not perform the constant small adjustments that signal uncertainty. Then practice occupying your own space with similar authority, not through mimicry, but through genuine reclamation of physical confidence. Walk as if you have every right to be exactly where you are. Stand as if the ground beneath you exists to support your purpose. Move with the deliberation of someone whose time has value and whose presence has meaning. The transformation this produces is immediate and profound, for respect begins here, in the silent language of physical being that predates words by millions of years. Those who master this first dark law discover that interactions shift before they speak, that opportunities present themselves with less effort, that resistance melts in the face of calm physical authority. This is not deception or manipulation. It is alignment between your internal sense of worth and your external presentation, a coherence that others recognize and respond to instinctively. Machiavelli would have approved, for he understood that power begins not with words or titles, but with the fundamental right to exist boldly in one's own skin, occupying space as a prince occupies his palace, with absolute and unquestioned sovereignty. The second dark law concerns the economy of words and the strategic deployment of silence, principles that Machiavelli observed in those who wielded influence far beyond their formal authority. He recognized that speech is currency, and like all currency, it loses value through excessive circulation. Those who speak constantly, who fill every pause with explanation, who volunteer information without being asked, inadvertently broadcast low status and diminish their own authority with each unnecessary word. Conversely, those who command respect understand that silence is not emptiness, but pressure, not absence but presence in its most concentrated form. Consider the advisor who speaks only when consulted versus the courtier who chatters nervously at every opportunity. The former's words carry weight precisely because they are rare, each statement assumed to contain value worth waiting for. The latter's constant stream of commentary becomes background noise, easily dismissed because it costs nothing and therefore must be worth nothing. This dynamic operates in every human interaction, from boardrooms to casual conversations, from negotiations to family gatherings. The person who can sit comfortably in silence while others rush to fill the void automatically occupies a position of strength, for they demonstrate that they need not perform or prove themselves through constant verbal display. Machiavelli understood that strategic silence serves multiple functions in the architecture of respect. First, it creates space for others to reveal themselves, to expose their thoughts, strategies, fears, and desires, while you gather information that can later be deployed with precision. Second, it establishes you as someone whose words matter, whose eventual contribution will be significant enough to warrant attention. Third, it demonstrates internal security, the absence of need to justify your presence or value through constant chatter. Those who cannot tolerate silence reveal their own discomfort with simply being, their belief that they exist only through continuous performance and verbal proof of worth. The dark truth is that most people speak not to communicate, but to manage their own anxiety. To fill space they fear they do not deserve to occupy quietly. They explain when no explanation was requested, justify when no accusation was made, volunteer information that diminishes rather than enhances their position. This compulsive speech often stems from the mistaken belief that silence represents absence of contribution, that unless they are constantly adding their voice to the conversation, they will be forgotten or dismissed. In reality, the opposite occurs. The person who speaks incessantly trains others to tune them out, while the person who speaks selectively trains others to listen carefully when they do choose to contribute. To wield this second law effectively requires overcoming deep conditioning that equates silence with rudeness or disengagement. It means developing comfort with empty air, with pauses that stretch beyond comfortable, with the tension that builds when no one rushes to fill the void. This comfort is not natural for most. It must be cultivated through deliberate practice, beginning perhaps with counting to 3 before responding to any question, creating a pause that immediately elevates the perceived value of your eventual answer. Notice how this small delay changes the dynamic, how people lean in slightly, how attention sharpens in anticipation of your response. Machiavelli would have recognized that this economy of speech extends beyond mere quantity to quality as well. When you do speak, Your words should be chosen with the precision of an archer selecting arrows, each one aimed at a specific target, none wasted on empty courtesy or needless elaboration. Strip your speech of qualifiers, hedges, and apologies. Remove the verbal tics that undermine authority. The constant, I think maybe, or sort of, or if that makes sense, that pepper so much modern communication. Speak declaratively when you have something to declare, interrogatively only when you genuinely seek information, and not at all when silence serves better. The transformation this creates is remarkable, for suddenly your words carry weight they previously lacked. People begin to listen more carefully when you speak, to consider your statements more seriously, to seek your input rather than waiting for you to volunteer it. This is not because your intelligence has increased, but because your presentation of it has aligned with how the human brain assigns value to information. Scarcity increases worth, whether in commodities or communication. The person who speaks selectively trains their audience to recognize that when they do speak, something meaningful is likely to emerge, creating anticipation rather than the dread of yet another unnecessary comment from someone who cannot bear their own silence. The third dark law addresses the management of emotion and the strategic presentation of internal states, territory that Machiavelli explored with unflinching clarity in his observations of power. He understood that while private feeling may be turbulent, public presentation must be calculated. For those who broadcast every internal fluctuation, surrender control to anyone capable of triggering their reactions. Respect flows toward those who appear unshakable, who navigate provocation and crisis with the same measured demeanor they bring to calm waters, suggesting reserves of strength that make open conflict unappealing and unpredictable responses dangerous. The mechanism here operates on multiple levels simultaneously. First, emotional control signals high value to the ancient brain, which associates reactivity with low status and composure with power. In ancestral environments, those who could not regulate their emotions were liabilities during crisis and threats during calm. Their unpredictability making them dangerous to keep close and impossible to rely upon. Those who maintained composure under pressure, conversely, demonstrated the kind of nervous system regulation that comes from confidence, capability, and genuine strength, rather than fragile ego protecting itself through constant display. Machiavelli would have noted how emotional volatility invites manipulation and disrespect simultaneously. The person who can be reliably triggered by specific words, topics, or tactics becomes a puppet whose strings are visible to anyone paying attention. Others learn quickly what provokes them and can deploy these provocations strategically to destabilize, distract, or control. Meanwhile, the person who maintains equanimity, regardless of external pressure, becomes mysterious and therefore formidable, for their true boundaries and capabilities remain unknown, creating healthy uncertainty in those who might otherwise test or challenge them. This law does not demand the suppression of genuine feeling, which would be both impossible and psychologically harmful, but rather the strategic delay between internal experience and external expression. Between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space resides all human freedom and power. The person who can experience anger without immediately expressing it, who can feel fear without broadcasting it, who can encounter insult without reflexive retaliation, possesses a sovereignty that those enslaved to their immediate reactions can never achieve. This delay allows for choice, whether to respond at all, how to respond if action is warranted, and when to respond for maximum effect rather than emotional release. Consider two individuals facing identical provocation. One responds immediately with visible anger, voice rising, body tensing, words tumbling out in reactive defense. The other pauses, perhaps even smiles slightly, then either addresses the provocation with calculated precision or simply declines to engage, treating it as beneath notice. Which commands more respect? The ancient brain reads the first as loss of control, as someone who has been successfully knocked off balance and therefore occupies lower status. It reads the second as unshakable confidence, as someone whose internal world is so secure that external provocation cannot penetrate it, suggesting depths of power that make direct confrontation unwise. Machiavelli understood that this emotional sovereignty must be cultivated deliberately, for it runs counter to modern culture's celebration of authenticity that often means broadcasting every feeling the moment it arises. True sovereignty requires distinguishing between authentic feeling and authentic expression, recognizing that while you may feel intensely, you need not express immediately. This distinction creates a buffer zone where you can examine your reactions, ask whether they serve your interests, and choose whether to give them external form or simply experience them internally, and let them pass like weather across the landscape of awareness. The practical development of this law begins with small provocations, moments when someone says something designed to trigger response. Practice experiencing the internal reaction, the surge of emotion that arises while maintaining external stillness. Notice that you can feel anger without expressing it, feel fear without showing it, feel contempt without broadcasting it. This recognition is liberating, for it reveals that emotions are information rather than commands, signals to be considered rather than impulses to be obeyed. As this capacity develops, you discover that most provocations are not worth responding to, that silence or calm acknowledgement often accomplishes more than reactive defense. The fourth dark law concerns the strategic use of attention and the power that flows from controlling what you focus upon and what you ignore. Machiavelli observed that princes who responded to every slight, who engaged with every criticism, who allowed their agenda to be hijacked by others' provocations, quickly found themselves reactive rather than directive, dancing to music composed by their enemies rather than conducting the orchestra themselves. Attention is the most valuable resource any person possesses. And those who command respect understand that where they direct this resource determines not only their own effectiveness, but signals to others their relative value in the hierarchy of concern. The mechanism operates through a simple but profound principle. What you give attention to grows in importance, both in your own mind and in the perception of observers. When you respond immediately to minor slights, engage with trivial criticisms, or allow yourself to be distracted by provocations designed to derail you, you elevate these things to significance they do not deserve, while simultaneously demonstrating that your attention can be controlled by anyone clever enough to push the right buttons. Conversely, when you maintain focus on your objectives regardless of external noise, you signal that your internal compass cannot be redirected by others' agendas, suggesting a solidity of purpose that commands respect, even from those who disagree with your goals. Machiavelli would have recognized how this law plays out in countless daily interactions where people compete, often unconsciously, for the scarce resource of your focus. The colleague who constantly seeks your opinion on trivial matters, the acquaintance who manufactures drama to capture your attention, the critic who baits you into defending yourself against accusations that serious people would ignore. Each represents an attempt to redirect your attention away from your chosen path and toward their needs, their issues, their desire for significance through your engagement. Those who habitually yield to these redirections train others to see them as available resources to be exploited rather than autonomous forces to be respected. The dark truth underlying this law is that selective attention is selective respect. You cannot respect everyone equally, and attempting to do so dilutes your effectiveness and signals lack of discernment. The person who treats all input as equally deserving of consideration appears not wise, but indiscriminate, unable to distinguish signal from noise, important from trivial, worthy of response from deserving only to be ignored. Strategic ignoring is not rudeness, but clarity, not coldness, but appropriate boundary setting that communicates what you value through what you choose to engage with versus what you allow to pass by unacknowledged. This law requires developing what might be called attention discipline, the capacity to maintain focus on chosen objectives despite a constant bombardment of stimuli designed to capture and redirect that focus. In modern environments saturated with information and provocation, this discipline becomes increasingly rare and therefore increasingly valuable. Those who possess it stand out immediately as different, as somehow immune to the constant reactivity that characterizes most human behavior, as operating according to internal rather than external priorities. This difference alone generates respect, for it suggests reserves of purpose strong enough to override the constant pull of distraction. Machiavelli would have counseled beginning this practice with small acts of strategic ignoring, moments when you consciously choose not to respond to something designed to provoke response. Perhaps it is a provocative social media comment, a piece of criticism that adds no value, a dramatic story someone tells to capture sympathy and attention. Practice simply not engaging, not because you are afraid or incapable, but because you have determined it does not serve your purposes to do so. Notice how this restraint feels initially uncomfortable, as if you are violating some social contract that demands response to every stimulus. Then notice how this discomfort fades and is replaced by a sense of power, of having conserved resources that would have been wasted in pointless engagement. As this capacity develops, extend it to larger domains. When someone attempts to pull you into unnecessary conflict, decline to participate not through evasion, but through simple disregard of the invitation. When gossip or drama swirls around you, maintain focus on your objectives as if the noise simply does not exist in your perceptual field. When critics demand your attention and response, offer neither unless doing so serves your strategic interests rather than their need for engagement. This pattern of selective attention gradually trains others in what to expect from you, that your focus cannot be commandeered, that your agenda cannot be hijacked, that attempting to provoke you into reactivity will fail because you operate according to principles they cannot manipulate. The fifth dark law addresses the paradox of neediness and the inverse relationship between apparent desperation and received respect. Machiavelli understood what modern culture often obscures, that those who need nothing from others command more than those who need everything, that the appearance of self-sufficiency attracts offers, while the broadcast of dependency repels them, that people instinctively assign higher value to those whose regard must be earned, rather than those who give it freely to anyone who shows minimal interest. This law operates with particular cruelty because it punishes most those who have greatest need, creating a vicious cycle where desperation begets rejection, which intensifies desperation in turn. The mechanism here taps into deep evolutionary logic about resource distribution and alliance formation. In ancestral environments, individuals who could not survive independently represented liabilities rather than assets, mouths to feed without corresponding contribution, sources of demand without reciprocal provision. Those who appeared self-sufficient, conversely, suggested surplus capacity, the ability to provide rather than merely consume, making them attractive allies and dangerous enemies. These ancient calculations persist in modern psychology, operating below conscious awareness to categorize people into those worth investing in versus those worth avoiding, those who add value versus those who extract it. Machiavelli would have noted how neediness manifests in countless subtle ways that broadcast low status more effectively than any explicit declaration of subordination. The person who responds immediately to every message, who clears their schedule to accommodate others' convenience, who laughs too enthusiastically at mediocre jokes, who agrees too readily with opinions they privately question, sends unmistakable signals of someone whose time and regard hold little value even to themselves. If you do not value your own attention, time, and approval, why should others? The question answers itself, and the resulting dynamic places you perpetually in the position of supplicant rather than equal or superior. This law creates particular challenges because genuine need is part of human existence, and attempting to eliminate it entirely is both impossible and undesirable. The solution lies not in becoming actually independent of others, which no human truly can be, but in managing the presentation of need so that it never appears as desperation. This means understanding the difference between appropriate interdependence and needy dependence, between collaborative exchange among equals and desperate grasping from a position of insufficiency. It means developing sufficient internal resources, whether material, emotional, or psychological, that others' acceptance or rejection genuinely does not determine your fundamental okayness, making your lack of neediness authentic rather than performed. Consider two people seeking employment. One approaches the interview as a supplicant, hoping for mercy, broadcasting through body language and verbal choices that they desperately need this opportunity and will accept almost any terms to secure it. The other approaches as someone evaluating mutual fit, assessing whether this organization deserves their talents while simultaneously presenting their capabilities. The first invites low offers and poor treatment because they have signaled that they lack alternatives and therefore possess no leverage. The second commands respect and better terms because they have signaled abundance of options, making the organization compete for their acceptance rather than the reverse. Machiavelli understood that this law requires genuine development of alternatives and resources rather than merely pretending to possess them. Authentic self-sufficiency cannot be faked convincingly over time, for those who truly have options behave differently at subtle levels from those merely performing indifference while internally desperate. This means investing systematically in building genuine capability, financial reserves, social connections, and psychological resilience so that your lack of neediness reflects reality rather than acting. It means developing multiple sources of income, multiple friendship circles, multiple potential partners, multiple possible paths forward so that no single outcome carries the weight of your entire well-being. The practical application begins with auditing your current behavioral patterns for signs of neediness that undermine respect. Do you respond instantly to messages signaling that you have nothing more important to do? Do you accept treatment you find unacceptable because you fear losing the relationship? Do you over-explain or justify your decisions as if seeking approval? Do you prioritize others' convenience over your own consistently? Each of these patterns broadcasts low value and invites corresponding treatment. Begin systematically correcting them. Delay responses, establish boundaries, state decisions without elaborate justification, protect your time as carefully as you would any precious resource. As you develop genuine self-sufficiency and cease broadcasting neediness, observe how others' behavior toward you shifts. Respect increases not because you have changed what you say, but because you have changed what you signal about your abundance or scarcity of options. People begin pursuing your attention rather than taking it for granted, offering better terms rather than assuming you will accept whatever they propose, treating your time as valuable because you have demonstrated through behavior that you consider it valuable. This transformation occurs naturally when neediness diminishes, requiring no explicit declaration or announcement, operating instead through the constant subtle communication of someone who has options and therefore requires nothing from any particular person or situation. The sixth dark law concerns the strategic management of mystery and the power that flows from remaining partially unknown and therefore unpredictable. Machiavelli observed that those who reveal everything about themselves, who explain all their reasoning, who make their strategies and motivations transparent, inadvertently surrender the advantage of uncertainty that keeps others cautious and respectful. Predictability invites manipulation, for when others fully understand your patterns, boundaries, and decision-making processes, they can game these systems to their advantage and your detriment. Mystery, conversely, creates a buffer of uncertainty that makes testing your limits riskier and challenging you less appealing. The mechanism operates through the human need to categorize and predict, to place others into understood boxes that allow for confident interaction. When someone remains somewhat mysterious, refusing to be fully known or completely predictable, they frustrate this categorization process and force others to treat them with additional care. Will they respond with anger or amusement to this provocation? Will they accept this treatment or enforce a boundary? Will they react predictably or introduce some element no one anticipated? These questions create healthy uncertainty that translates into cautious respect. For humans, avoid unnecessary conflict with those whose reactions they cannot forecast with confidence. Machiavelli would have recognized that most people err toward excessive transparency, believing that openness and authenticity require revealing everything about themselves to anyone who asks. They share their complete history, explain every decision in exhaustive detail, discuss their fears and insecurities openly, describe their strategies and plans without reservation. This openness feels virtuous and modern, aligned with contemporary values around vulnerability and connection. Yet it inadvertently provides others with complete maps of their psychology, removing the protective uncertainty that prevents exploitation and maintains respect through calculated distance. The dark truth is that humans respect boundaries more than they respect openness, that strategic withholding commands more interest than generous sharing, that questions left unanswered generate more fascination than questions exhaustively addressed. The person who shares everything becomes boring precisely through their completeness, leaving no mystery to explore, no depths to discover, no unknown territory that might contain surprising value. Conversely, the person who reveals themselves strategically and partially maintains perpetual interest. For others never quite feel they have fully understood them, never become confident that they know exactly what to expect, never relax into the comfortable dismissal that comes with complete categorization. This law requires developing comfort with being misunderstood, with leaving questions unanswered, with declining to explain yourself to those who have not earned the right to your complete transparency. It means understanding that you owe most people very little information about your internal world, your reasoning, your history, or your plans. They may be curious, they may even feel entitled to answers, but curiosity and entitlement do not create obligation. When someone asks why you made a particular decision, you can simply state what you decided without explaining the reasoning. When someone probes into your past, you can acknowledge the question without answering it. When someone demands to know your plans, you can deflect without apology. Machiavelli would have counseled that this strategic opacity should not extend to actual deception, which creates different problems when discovered, but rather to simple withholding of information others have not earned. There is vast territory between lying and telling everything, and it is in this territory that respect is cultivated and maintained. Practice phrases that acknowledge without revealing. That is an interesting question, without answering it. I prefer to keep that private, without explaining why. I have my reasons, without detailing them. These responses frustrate those who feel entitled to your transparency while maintaining integrity by avoiding actual dishonesty. As you develop this capacity for strategic mystery, observe how it affects others' behavior toward you. Notice how people begin to pay more attention to what you do say, treating your words as precious because they are scarce. Notice how they approach you with more caution, uncertain of your boundaries and therefore more careful not to cross them. Notice how they invest more effort in understanding you, precisely because you have not made understanding easy through exhaustive self-revelation. Notice how your perceived value increases, for scarcity applies to information as much as to any other resource. And by rationing information about yourself, you automatically increase its perceived worth. The seventh and final dark law addresses the principle of demonstrated value versus claimed value, and the imperative of letting your results speak while others exhaust themselves in self-promotion. Machiavelli understood that those who truly possess power need not constantly announce it. That genuine capability demonstrates itself through outcomes rather than proclamations, and that those who spend the most energy broadcasting their worth often possess the least of it. This law separates those who produce from those who merely perform production, those whose confidence comes from genuine achievement versus those whose boasting attempts to substitute for accomplishment they lack. The mechanism here exploits a simple asymmetry. Demonstrated value requires no verbal reinforcement because it exists independently of description, while claimed value requires constant verbal maintenance because it exists only through description. The master craftsman need not explain their mastery. Their work speaks unambiguously to those with eyes to see. The charlatan, possessing no work that speaks for itself, must speak incessantly about themselves, hoping that quantity of proclamation might compensate for absence of substance. Observers, even those lacking expertise to evaluate the work itself, unconsciously register this pattern, instinctively trusting the quiet producer over the loud claimer. Machiavelli would have noted how this dynamic plays out across every domain of human endeavor. The truly wealthy rarely discuss their wealth, for it manifests in countless visible ways without requiring announcement. Those struggling financially or newly arrived to wealth, conversely, often discuss it constantly, as if repetition might solidify their membership in a club that does not require verbal applications from genuine members. Similarly, the genuinely intelligent demonstrate their intelligence through the quality of their thinking rather than proclamations of their credentials or test scores, while those of mediocre intelligence often lead with these credentials precisely because their actual thinking does not speak for itself. This law creates particular challenges in modern environments that reward self-promotion and where opportunities often go to those who broadcast loudest rather than produce best. The tension between letting work speak for itself and ensuring that work receives recognition requires careful navigation. The solution lies not in refusing all self-promotion, but in understanding the difference between letting others know what you have accomplished versus constantly telling them how impressive you are. The first provides information, the second seeks validation. The first comes from confidence, The second reveals insecurity masked as confidence. Consider two individuals of equal actual capability. One constantly discusses their achievements, drops references to their credentials, finds ways to turn every conversation toward their accomplishments, and generally ensures that no one forgets how impressive they supposedly are. The other simply does exceptional work, speaks about it only when directly relevant or when others need information, and allows the work itself to create their reputation. Over time, the second builds genuine respect from those who matter, while the first develops a reputation for insecurity, masquerading as confidence for compensation rather than capability. Machiavelli understood that this law requires genuine development of capability rather than merely remaining silent about mediocre work. You cannot let your results speak if your results are unimpressive. Silence in that case simply makes you invisible rather than mysterious. This means first focusing on actually becoming excellent at something valuable, developing genuine expertise and capability that produces outcomes others recognize as superior. Only once you possess real value can you afford the powerful move of understating rather than overstating it, of letting discovery replace announcement, of allowing others to notice your quality rather than demanding they acknowledge it. The practical application begins with systematic reduction of self-promotional behavior, while systematic increase of actual quality. Stop discussing your achievements unless directly asked or genuinely relevant to helping others. Stop name-dropping credentials or connections in ways designed to impress. Stop turning conversations toward your accomplishments. Stop comparing yourself favorably to others in ways designed to elevate your status. Instead, redirect that energy toward actually producing work so excellent that it creates its own gravity, pulling attention and opportunity toward itself without your needing to push. As you develop this pattern of understated excellence, observe how respect compounds over time in ways that loud self-promotion never achieves. Notice how people begin referring others to you, describing your capabilities in terms far more flattering than you would dare use yourself. Notice how opportunities arrive without your needing to seek them, as word spreads about someone whose work exceeds their claims rather than the reverse. Notice how your quiet confidence, grounded in genuine capability, becomes magnetic in environments saturated with loud insecurity trying to pass as confidence. This is the final dark law made manifest, that the person who needs to tell you they are powerful has already revealed they are not, while the person who simply is powerful need never say so at all. And so you arrive at the end of this excavation into the machinery of respect, this journey through principles that operate whether you acknowledge them or not, whether you approve of them or not, whether you wish reality constructed differently or not. Machiavelli never claimed to create the dark laws that govern human interaction. He merely possessed the courage to describe them without the cosmetic disguise of morality that makes such truths palatable to those who prefer beautiful lies. What you have encountered here is not prescription for how things should be, but description of how things are, the actual architecture beneath the performance of civilization. The real currents that determine who rises and who remains unseen, regardless of their virtue or good intentions. These 7 laws operate simultaneously and synergistically, each reinforcing the others to create the total effect of presence that commands respect before language enters the equation. Physical sovereignty establishes the foundation through non-verbal communication that speaks to ancient calculation systems. Strategic silence amplifies the value of your words by making them scarce. Emotional control demonstrates internal strength that makes confrontation unappealing. Attention discipline signals that your focus cannot be hijacked by others' agendas. Lack of neediness suggests abundance that attracts rather than desperation that repels. Strategic mystery maintains uncertainty that prevents exploitation. Demonstrated value proves capability that requires no verbal reinforcement. Together, they form a complete system that operates below conscious awareness, yet determines conscious treatment with ruthless consistency. The question now is not whether you agree with these laws or find them fair, for reality is indifferent to your preferences and operates according to its own logic rather than your wishes. The question is whether you will continue as their unknowing subject, wondering why respect eludes you, despite your good intentions and kind heart, or whether you will become their conscious practitioner, aligning your behavior with actual, rather than wished-for mechanics of human psychology. This choice belongs to you alone, and both paths are available. One leads to perpetual confusion about why others do not treat you as you deserve. The other leads to clear-eyed effectiveness and the respect that flows naturally toward those who understand the game they are actually playing, rather than the game they wish they were playing. Machiavelli would remind you that knowledge without application is merely intellectual entertainment, satisfying perhaps, but ultimately useless for changing your position in the hierarchies that matter. These laws remain theoretical until you embody them through action, until you catch yourself apologizing with your posture and consciously correct it, until you notice yourself over-explaining and choose silence instead, until you feel neediness rising and deliberately cultivate self-sufficiency as antidote. The transformation from knowing to being happens through 10,000 small corrections, through constant vigilance against the conditioning that trained you to broadcast low status, through countless subtle mechanisms you never noticed until they were illuminated. The final truth is this: you have always known these laws at some level, have always recognized them operating in others, even if you could not articulate the pattern. You have felt the difference between those who command respect effortlessly and those who beg for it unsuccessfully. You have noticed who occupies space with authority and who apologizes for their existence. You have observed who speaks and is heard versus who speaks and is ignored. The dark laws have been visible throughout your life. This has merely been an exercise in conscious recognition of patterns you already sensed. The only question remaining is what you will do with this recognition, whether it will fade back into comfortable unconsciousness or catalyze genuine transformation in how you move through the world. If this exploration has resonated with something in you, if you have felt the uncomfortable recognition of truth that resists pretty packaging, then perhaps you are someone who values reality over comforting illusion. That recognition makes you rare and marks you as someone capable of genuine transformation rather than merely wishing for it. If you found value here, demonstrate it through the simple act of liking this content, for it signals to others that this material deserves attention. Share it with someone who needs this particular illumination, who struggles with being too kind in a world that mistakes kindness for weakness. Subscribe to continue this exploration into the mechanics of power and presence that most would rather not acknowledge, but that determine outcomes more than any other factor. And comment below with the single dark law that hit hardest, the one you recognized most immediately in your own patterns. These small actions cost nothing, yet they compound into something significant, creating a community of those willing to see clearly rather than comfortably. The choice, as always, remains yours, but choose consciously, for that is what separates those who master these laws from those who remain their unknowing subjects.